tell me a little bit about your business and who it serves?
Yeah, so I own four different companies. The one that's the oldest, or the first company that I started, is a company called Wayne Contracting. So what
Hmm.
they do is specialty and general contracting in the commercial market, and we work nationally, predominantly in the retail sector. Currently, we're looking to explore some other vertical markets. So we do everything from fixture installation all the way up through large scale remodels and tenant improvements.
All right. What are the other three then? Now you've got us curious.
There's also a concrete and hardscapes company which does residential decorative work here in St. Louis area. So it's patios, outdoor kitchens, outdoor fireplaces, driveways, stuff like that. There's a plumbing company which is reactive residential work. So it's more like break fix type stuff.
Hmm.
And then there is a signage and graphics company that does installations nationwide for the commercial marketplace, predominantly in retail and like grocery store chains.
That's quite a portfolio there.
Thanks.
So now let's move on to you. Um, how long ago did you start Wayne Contracting? That being the first.
It was about 6 years ago, so it was in 2014.
Okay. What were you doing before that?
I was working for a company that did something comparable, just wasn't quite the right fit.
Okay, so going back to then, and you're getting ready to take the leap. What were the things about Brad Burns that made Brad say, you know, I gotta do this. I gotta go out on my own.
Well, to be completely honest, it was everything was going fine at the place I was working, and it was kind of a forced exit type situation. And then a lot of the clients that that company wouldn't service that I developed relationships with started calling me after they heard that I had left, and were asking where I was going to be going, ending up next, and what I was going to be doing. I kind of told them I wasn't exactly sure, and they said, "Well, in the interim, until you can figure it out, do you want to help us with some small projects that nobody else wants to really do because the market's so good right now?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine. We can kind of figure that out." And I just started going out and doing a lot of the work myself, cultivating relationships in local markets to help me facilitate projects, and then just kind of organically grew from that, to be completely honest. But I've always had an entrepreneurial bone in my body. Had a couple smaller companies before that, and I think the biggest challenge that I had working in someone else's ecosystem, if you want to call it that, is I was really inquisitive. I always asked questions. I always kind of thought outside the box about ways to improve or ways to do things a little bit better. And some people just aren't receptive to those type of things. So I think that kind of caused some challenges along the way for me.
So you use the word entrepreneurial bone now, and then I picked up two themes in there. I just want to clarify because the whole point of the study, right, is that we're trying to dig a little deeper than multiple choice might allow, which is what
Sure.
most surveys do. So we're interviewing 100+ business owners and trying to zero in on those similarities and differences kind of thing. So one thing I noticed would be curiosity and the other would be autonomy.
Yeah.
Would those be about right to describe entrepreneurial bone in this case?
Yeah. And I think I've always have this interest in problem solving. So there's always, I like being challenged to figure out complicated situations and kind of overcome obstacles that people might tend to shy away from typically.
Okay, interesting. All right, now I've got another question for you. If you had the opportunity to time travel, but our time machine isn't really reliable, so you're only going to get about 30 seconds, but you can choose which point in your life you go back to. You've got a full timeline, right? From when you were a baby to when you started your business. At what point in time would you go back to? And what would be the piece of advice you would give your past self?
I would probably have to say it would be right around the time I was finishing up college. And I would probably tell myself just to figure out a way to do something on my own, kind of step outside the box. I mean, I kind of harp on this all the time. You know, when we were, my generation were kids, there really wasn't this big push for entrepreneurship, or this wasn't a lot of information that was available to somebody to kind of, I guess, really make a run at it. So I didn't even really completely comprehend the concept of owning and running my own business until I was well out of college.
Would you like an interesting fact from us?
Sure.
Out of about 30 entrepreneurs we've interviewed so far and hit them with that question or a similar one, about 80% gave the same response. I thought you might find that as interesting as I have. I've been pretty wowed. I mean, I've also been in business a while myself, and that's pretty much the same advice I would give myself. But I was really shocked to see such a pattern that, hey, if I could, I'd tell myself to start a little earlier.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think when you're young, you're a little bit more afraid. You don't quite comprehend everything, and if you don't really have a solid understanding of entrepreneurship, you're probably afraid to really get out there and fail because you know at that time you don't really have much in terms of capital, relationships, just to kind of help you feel comfortable to get things off the ground.
on that note, your best friend has been an employee all his life, or a really close friend, right? Let's imagine he's thinking about starting a business. What piece of advice would you give him with regards to not getting blindsided? So, what mistake would you advise him to avoid?
I would just tell them to make sure that, well, on the front end, make sure everything's structurally set up the right way, um, and delegate your accounting responsibilities as quickly as you can to somebody that's an expert in that field.
All right. And I have one last question for you. Your customer, right? What is the biggest thing you solve for them? Why do they go to Brad or a Brad inspired company, if you like, and as opposed to a competitor? What is it about you and the companies you build that's kind of unique?
I think it's sad to say, it's when we say that we're going to do something, we always stand behind what we do, no matter what. And the biggest challenge that I've heard from a lot of people is they just lack consistency from the people that they hire to do various aspects of their projects. And when I meet with people on the front end of a project, or even people that we're trying to cultivate a relationship with or a long-term partnership with, and I give them my business cards, my cell phone, I say, call me at 3:00 in the morning. I'm indifferent. If there's an issue, let's get it resolved. If you want to tell me how great I am at 3 in the morning, then more power to you. I'll call you back when I wake up. So I think it's consistency, transparency, and just authenticity of kind of how we present ourselves and how we go about doing things that we do that kind of engage people to really look to build a longer term relationship with us.
I'm going to pick a label out for you from my backpack. I'm going to go with reliable.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one too.
All right. All right. This has been awesome. For this, I've got pretty much everything I needed. I do want to recap with you in terms of if there's anything you think that specifically made you a fit for being an entrepreneur as opposed to a different path in life, as opposed to, let's say, a career path. Um, if there's anything you think that we didn't cover, what would it be?
I think something that's helped me is, so it's funny, I live in St. Louis now, and um, I grew up out in the country, and I think growing up in that atmosphere, you really develop a really solid work ethic. You got to get out on the farm. You got to, throw around bales of hay and cut down trees and, all that fun stuff. So I just think as a young kid, you kind of learn how to work harder than everybody else growing up in that atmosphere.
I gotcha. All right. So if I had to put three things into that entrepreneurial bone, I guess it would be hard work, problem solving, and that little bit of autonomy in there as well. All right. Would that be about right?
Yeah,
Did I
no,
pick
that would
that
be
up
perfect.
correctly?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. It's been awesome, Brad.
I appreciate the time. Thanks for reaching back out.